So I am going to be doing a refresher video on Jeremiah 17:5, and it says that cursed are those who rely on men and make flesh their strength. Recently, I'm in a new season, I'm in a new period of my life, and I've just had everything in an upheaval. But as I was driving this morning, there were still questions I had towards one of the last people that I mentored. And part of this upheaval was I was recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I remember wondering, I'm like, God, you told me that my time with her was done, and yet my brain couldn't let go of it. Well, now being diagnosed with ADHD, I understand why my brain wouldn't let go of it. But then that led into another question, because I remember one time I was sitting and reading the Bible in church, and God pointed out a scripture and said, coming out of the land of the enemy. And I didn't fully recognize what that meant. And so I accidentally told it to her when it was actually meant for my son. My son has been dealing with a lot of demonic bondages from past trauma, from all this other stuff that we went through when he was younger. And I do remember God telling me that in his timing that he would be set free. But in that moment, I misunderstood God, right? It's not that I heard God wrong. It's that I misunderstood what God had to say, and I told it to the wrong person. I remember later God sorting that out for me and me going, oh my gosh, God, I would never actually intentionally do that. I'm so sorry. But when I said that, he reminded me of Jeremiah 17:5, that it is still the responsibility of the other person to not fully rely on another man, but go to God with the information. The reason why so many Christians are cursed are because they see God in other people, but then they expect those people to be able to speak as well and understand as well as God does. And we're still human. We're still flawed. We misunderstand God. We misspeak what he was trying to tell us, right? There's going to be flaws in how we deliver the message, but we're still obeying God in delivering the message. And so if you fully rely on a man to tell you information as if they were God, where they could relay it perfectly, they didn't misunderstand anything, you'd get full understanding from it, then you are cursed. Because although God still sent that person into your life, they're human, they're flawed, the delivery of it's going to be a bit flawed. And that can end up causing you, if you rely fully on what they said, to believe there was a seed planted, so that seed will still grow, but there could have been something that was misrepresented in it to also cause a lot for you to believe a lie. And none of it was demonic. None of it was intentional. None of it was from ill intent. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't still affect you. So we have to be very aware that, yes, God sends people into our lives to speak, but they're humans. They make mistakes. I've seen plenty of where I make mistakes, and I apologize to God, and he reminds me of that, right? That although I'm human and I've made a mistake, and I just have learned not to do it in the future, right? I take what I've learned and I don't do it in the future. But it's still their responsibility to say, okay, I got this information. Let's take it to God and let him sort it out for me. Because what God does is God has people plant a seed or water it, but God gives the growth. Paul says, I planted the seed, Apollos watered, but God gives the growth, right? And that's because we can only give limited information. God is what he does is he takes that information and he makes it whole for you, and he brings you into a full understanding of it. And he will tell you, okay, well, no, that wasn't exactly right. They accidentally misunderstood me on that. That wasn't right. That wasn't right, right? And then he'll take what he did want you to know and he'll grow it. But you have to seek God on it. God is the ultimate one you should be hearing from. And if you don't understand how to hear God, let that be your priority first. I remember God, that was one of the first things God really grew me in, was how to understand his voice so I could follow it better. God is not one to expect you to be able to do everything immediately. He understands when we are his children, it literally means that we are having to slowly develop and grow. You don't expect a newborn baby to be able to talk and understand what you're saying. You give them time to develop and grow, and they learn their language, they learn what you mean and understand you. And that is what God is doing with you. So if you don't feel like you fully hear God, let that be your first focus, is learning how to tune in and be in tune with him and hear him, what his voice is versus your own thoughts versus what a demonic voice sounds like. Let that be your first lesson, so that then you can go on and pursue further growth to a greater degree. But during this time, you cannot fully rely on a man. You have to at least take it to God and ask for wisdom. The Bible tells us that if we ask for wisdom, it'll be freely given. I have to admit, I am absolutely terrible about asking for wisdom, because God's just always given me wisdom, and I know it's him and I know to act it out. And recently he's like, no, I'm expecting you to ask me as well. So yes, he gives us wisdom, but he also expects us to ask in certain situations. So what needs to be done is, when you hear information either off TikTok, from another person, your own pastor, like people put their pastors on a pedestal to be the exact voice of God, but they are just as flawed as we are. So even if you hear information on some of God from your pastor in the pulpit, always take it to God. Like, start asking God immediately, give me wisdom on what the pastor spoke today, on what I needed to know, on what maybe wasn't right, and maybe he misunderstood you, maybe he accidentally misrepresented it, right? And sort this out for me. And what happens is your faith increasingly grows in aspects that you would have never dreamed of.